I'm Charlie Brooker, and welcome to So Wrong It's Right, a show all about stupidity, ignorance, incompetence, and several other terms we associate with George Osborne. It's a show about what's acceptable and what isn't, a concept that varies from country to country. For instance, it's considered rude to stick your thumb up in Thailand. That can also be the case in Britain, depending on where you stick it. Tonight we're celebrating our capacity for error. Even experts get it wrong sometimes. In 1947, the boss of IBM famously predicted there would only ever be a market for about 5 computers in the world. Although he did correctly predict they'd be full of pornography and funny cat photos. Much the same thing in my book. My guests tonight are a dream lineup in that I keep pinching myself in the vain hope they'll go away. Please welcome them. They are Miles Jupp, Susan Calman and Sean Pye. I'm going to be asking them all a series of questions. Their aim is to answer each of them as wrongly as possible. I'll be awarding a point to whoever I think has given me the worst answer. OK, the first round is called Wrong Time, Wrong Place. I'll be asking my guests to delve into their own calamitous pasts and then attempt to outwrong each other with stories from their own dismal, pathetic and rather laughable little lives. This week's theme is belief. Faith in God is a popular belief. The notion of someone watching over them day in, day out is a great comfort to many people. Although not, apparently, to the woman who lives next door to me. Curtain-owning atheist. Many pop stars seem to have weird beliefs. ABBA believed in angels. R. Kelly believed he could fly. And Michael Jackson believed his doctor was qualified. We'll start with you, Miles. What is the stupidest thing you've ever believed?
Well, I'm quite gullible, and I had a friend, Natalie. She would always tell me lies to see what I would believe, and I would believe nearly all of them. And she convinced me that bananas are not actually a fruit. Basically, there was something called lantern fruit, she told me it was called, which, if you can imagine like a banana without the white stuff in squashed down, right, with gaps in it, the white that banana became were eggs laid by insects. And then the heat of the sun melded them all together and then eventually closed up the lantern plant, creating what we all think of as the banana.
When did she tell you? Were you in school?
I was at university.
So, sorry, so the flesh of a banana was made up of little secretions from insects?
Yeah. That, I mean, as a result of serendipity, it was absolutely delicious.
So how did the ripening of bananas work within this?
It was simply through heat. I mean, heat brought the thing together and it sealed up the 4 leaves to make one cohesive thing, which was the skin. And then the sun beaming down on what we all think now of as the banana skin.
But it's actually the lantern fruit crust.
That's right. Sort of caramelised the contents, making it sweet.
You idiot.
I have a friend that won't eat any sort of oranges. She won't put anything in her mouth that explodes.
Well, that's sensible, to be honest. That's why I am the way I am.
To be fair, I agree with it.
Hang on, define... She won't put anything in her mouth...
She won't put anything in her mouth that explodes, so anything encased in a sack. So... cherry tomatoes is the worst thing. That it's and orange segments, but you would drink orange juice, for example, because that isn't enclosed in a sack.
Lying to people for comic effect. Graham Linehan taught me a good pointless lie once. He once sent me a text that just said, "Well, hey, I'm in a helicopter." And I as you do, I responded, "Wow, really? No." Try it, it's brilliant. Just do it yourself. Do it after the show. Just pick a name at random from your phone, send them a text. Well, hey, I'm in a helicopter. You'll be pleased by the response. Susan.
Quite like Miles, I'm incredibly gullible, and it's something that my mother realised very early on, and she lied frequently, but I think the one that had the greatest effect was she told me that it was illegal to feed squirrels. Now, I took that because my mum told me. I thought, well, my mum wouldn't lie to me because I was still young and I didn't realise how it worked. And then from that point on, I passed that on. So I would go, even at university in the park in Glasgow, I would go up to people feeding squirrels and say, I'm just letting you know, mate, you're breaking the law. And people used to say to me, no, it's not illegal to feed squirrels, that's absolute nonsense. And I would get really angry because I'm defensive, because it was my mother that told me that. I was like, my mother would not lie to me. And then when I finally qualified as a lawyer, I thought, I'm going to put this to bed once and for all. And I spent days trying to find the relevant squirrel statute in Scots law regarding squirrels. Couldn't find it. Phoned my mother and said, Mum, I'm having difficulty here. Can you remember the source of this feeding squirrels illegal thing? And she just said, blasé as you like, I just made that up to keep you away from squirrels. But everyone just, and I can't believe, because everyone used to tell me at university, everyone used to say that's nonsense, and I defended her. And it just made me question a lot of the other things that she told me in life. For example, we weren't allowed microwave popcorn because she said it would go on fire and we'd die. And it's just because she didn't want to buy us microwave popcorn. But I recently got it for the first time, and my better half said, let's have microwave popcorn. And I said, don't, it'll go on fire and we'll die. And when someone just looks at you like you're utterly stupid at the age of 37... and again,
they're usually right?
Yes. But again, I said, she wouldn't lie to me. She's my mother. Phoned up. Am I going to die? Oh, no, I just said that.
Who do you think they sell microwave popcorn to all these years? It wouldn't help their business prospects if people died every time they made it, would it?
I just thought maybe they hushed it up. It happened.
There would be massive campaign. Don't buy it. They'd be running out into the street going, don't buy that stuff. People would knock it out of your hands in Sainsbury's. Speaking about the things that people tell you, and insects reminds me that my grandmother used to call, Garibaldi biscuits. My grandmother used to call them dead fly biscuits. And I remember once catching a blue bottle and killing it as a child and eating it. On the assumption, genuinely held belief, that it would taste like a big juicy raisin. I don't know if anyone here has eaten a blue bottle. You can taste, they've got those compound eyes. You can taste every bit of that compound eye. I mean, don't go, consider me an explorer. You won't have to go there. I have been there. It was quite big. It was really crunchy blue bottles.
As long as it doesn't explode in your mouth, Charlie.
Well, Sean, what is...
Hello. I only do one impression, and it's Charlie.
Really?
And I thought I'd try it just to make sure he hated me for the rest of the thing.
Go on, then.
Did you see Rupert Murdoch? Honestly, he looked like a haunted scrotum.
Is that me? Really? I mean, when you look at...
Let's see what Sky News made.
Is that really what I'm Yes! Oh, you've broken
I've known
me.
Charlie for many years and I've never had the courage to do that, so why not do it now in front of everybody?
The worst thing is I'm now calculating that you must have done that impression when I'm not around many times.
Lots of things happen behind your back, Charlie.
Oh. Well, Sean, what is... you look like someone who believes stupid things. What's the
I hope this
stupidest
counts.
thing you've
I hope
ever
this
believed?
counts as believing a stupid thing. I had a row with my sister once. She was 15, I was 25. She was coming up to London, and I met her at Victoria Coach Station, and she was in a really bad mood, and she was just being odd with me. And eventually I sort of grabbed her and sort of went, I'm not having this. And I said to her, let's just get the tube, go back to my flat, and we'll sort out whatever it is. And it was at that moment I looked across the ticket hall, and I saw a 15-year-old girl that looked a lot more like my sister. than the girl I was talking to, and had my hand round her arm. Luckily, it all ended well, because my sister came over and she really did look like this girl, and they had a bit of a laugh about it. But
That was I'd say a near Crime Watch experience. What if she'd gone with you?
well, I don't know. I had a whole evening planned, and I bought some steaks and some wine, so she might have had a nice time. I feel worse. I mean, the worst part about it was that I didn't recognise my own sister, I think. But to be fair to me, my sister is quite plain-looking, so... And obviously I gave her a big hug as well, which And she was sort of pushing me away, and I was thinking, but she found the funny side. We had a good old giggle about it, luckily, afterwards. Otherwise, I'd be in prison.
No, I mean, I don't know whether or not a jury would necessarily believe it looked like my sister. That might get you into more trouble. I was just touching her because she looked like my sister.
Get off!
What's the problem?
Get off! She's my sister! She's up from Devon! It's what we do!
So anyway, at the end of that round, Miles, you believed that bananas were some kind of insect byproduct. Susan Calman, you believed it was illegal to feed squirrels. Meanwhile, Sean, you nearly abducted a girl, it seems. You know what, I'm going to give the point to Miles, because I think that's sort of disgusting. Well, our next round is called Do Your Worst. It's a test of my guests' capacity for creative wrongdoing. This week's theme is the Olympics. The Olympics are almost upon us. I'm already looking forward to the 100 metres that I'll be leaving between me and any TV screen showing the Olympics. Thanks to the Olympics, East London is currently going through a renaissance, only 500 years after the rest of the world. Anyway, my question is, what is the worst idea for a sport at the London Olympics you can possibly conceive of? We will start with you, Susan Calman.
OK, this is a winner. Don't applaud too hard. I think in the Olympics we should have the dog agility course.
Yay!
No, it's fine. Right, everyone loves dogs, and if they don't, they're wrong. It's an event that depends not necessarily on the performance of the human, more on the dog, right? And loads of people have got dogs. So we could have, like, open auditions like Britain's Got Talent. Have you got a dog? You might get in the Olympic team. You don't need to train for years. Just come with your dog and see if it can run around a pole.
What? No, I'm not having animals in the Olympics.
You've got horses.
No.
And I think it's always very unfair the horse doesn't get a medal as well. I mean, I think it's just wrong.
I suppose I'd never really thought about how do the horses have their own Olympics village and
They've
stuff?
got their own, the equestrian centre, which is purpose-built for them, will have horse facilities, showers, television rooms, smoking areas. Dogs would really go for it. And I just think it'd be nice to see, like, a middle-aged woman from, I don't know, Sussex, with her poodle, winning an Olympic gold medal. And much as I admire athletes and the fact that they've got commitment, blah, 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 I'd like to see someone who looks like myself, who eats too many Ferrero Rocher and watches Loose Women on the television winning an Olympic gold. I think that would inspire a generation.
That's a good point. If horses are allowed to enter the Olympics, why aren't dogs? Why aren't cats?
Why aren't
cockroaches?
dogs and things allowed to enter the Olympics? Because there's not like a sort of major dog sport. Is the horses are entered the Olympics. Well, they're entered by their owners, firstly, from an administrative point of view.
Sorry, when you say
what you're
horses are entered
Charlie?
by their owners, what do you mean?
I meant purely from an administrative point of view, Charlie. It's the owners very much filling in the forms. That's what needs to happen. Right, anyone that can fill in a form should be allowed to enter the Olympics, I think. I think there should be a bureaucracy event.
Sean?
The Olympics, I don't know. It's all about celebrating the fastest and who can jump the furthest, but we don't like that in this country, do we? It's like the Daily Mail likes people who are the fattest or the oldest or, people who've gone the most south. So we should just look at other ways that we can win.
What, like the 800 metres dodder?
Yeah. Or just...
Who walks with the wobbliest, most amusing old gait.
Yeah.
Indeed. Or have an event that we could win, like, to find out who's the youngest. So they do the starting pistol and then whoever gives birth first. At the start of the 100 metres. We could win that.
Yeah.
Birth could be an Olympic sport, actually. That would be worth watching. Miles, what would you introduce at the London Olympics?
Either an event where some apparently demure people have to really let themselves go.
Sorry, over what time period are we talking? Decades?
No. I mean, between sort of 6 and 11 in the evening or whatever. A sort of basically make sort of post office behaviour into a competitive event. I should imagine it already is reasonably competitive. I'm happy to say I don't work in that environment. I'm sorry so many of you do. The other one would be cushion rolling.
Cushion rolling?
Yeah, you have to roll a cushion.
I think the finer points of this are lost on me.
No, it's very complicated.
A cushion isn't round. You can't roll a cushion.
Well, that's one of the things that makes it such a challenge. I mean, whoever took up a sport because it was easy.
Skimming, you can skim a cushion. You can't roll a cushion.
All I'm saying is maybe this isn't the sport for you, Charlie.
Do I not dare to dream? How do you roll a cushion?
Well, it's all in the wrist. You have to try and roll the cushion. I mean, I imagine the first person that was passed a hammer and said, "You just throw this." Went, "What? You can't throw hammers." But eventually, you work out a system.
But there are many sports that I don't understand where they came from. I don't know at what point 2 or more people were in a swimming pool, music came on and they thought, let's do it all at the same time. I mean, whenever I've been swimming and there's been music playing, I've never kind of given that look to the woman beside me. It's the Macarena, shall we?
So to summarise, Susan Calman, you want a dog agility contest. Sean Pye, you want people giving birth and things like that. And Miles, you want to introduce cushion rolling. I'd say that, Susan, you have identified something. I hadn't thought about the disparity between horses being allowed in and dogs not being allowed in, so it's a point to you. Between covering, uncovering and enjoying. This round is called This Putrid Modern Hell, and it's devoted to the biggest wrongs from the modern world. I'll be asking each of my guests to nominate the thing they hate most about modern life, and my favourite answer wins a point. Susan, what annoys you about the modern world?
The quiet coach on trains. Now, people sometimes get upset at me when I say I'm upset at the quiet coach. I think it's fine. What I don't like is what it does to people, because the quiet coach on the train is essentially, to me, the most soulless, joyless place I've ever been in my life. It's like a dementor, if you believe the documentary Harry Potter, has sucked all joy out of anybody, because it's the quiet coach. It's not the silent coach. You are still allowed to breathe, for example. Perhaps sneeze, even cough, some might say. You are allowed to listen to electronic devices, but what happens is the people become very officious in the quiet coach. And so when you're doing anything, I ate some crisps on the quiet coach, and the conductor asked me to stop. Now, I was eating crisps. I thought I was sucking them. So I didn't make a lot of noise.
Hang on a minute. Are you sure that the conductor didn't ask you to stop because you were sucking crisps? And it was just weirding everyone out?
Well, in my defence, the crisps on the train are kettle crisps, which are essentially razor blades in a packet. And your only choices are to suck the crisps to make them more digestible or dip them in tea. Now, personally, I was brought up not to dip crisps in tea because it was illegal.
Well, no. You used to approach people who were feeding squirrels in the park and tell them that what they were doing was illegal.
That's just correct.
So you're not really the best qualified, but you're a hypocrite.
No, I'm not a hypocrite. There is a difference there. I was enforcing what I believed was an act of Parliament. The squirrel legislation.
Whereas the quiet coach is kind of an agreement.
There is no law. There is no law. It's essentially a promise you make when you buy a ticket to be quiet. Now, the other day, I was on the quiet coach and I hadn't asked to be on the quiet coach. East Coast Railways believed I should be on the quiet coach. I don't know why they thought it would be good for me to spend 4.5 hours in complete silence with people who had no joy in their lives, but they put me in the quiet coach. Now, that's not an act of Parliament. I cannot be arrested for making noise in the quiet coach. It's merely a policitatio, if you will, a promise, a verbal promise, no less. And I find it terrible that it's turned into essentially a sin to make any noise on what is essentially just another carriage with quiet on a sticker on a bloody window.
Would you feel better if they rebranded the quiet coach as a monastery? Like one of those monasteries that people go, they take a vow of silence for the duration of your trip, and you say nothing at all, and all the windows are stained glass.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm getting quite into it. Stained glass windows and absolute silence, and nothing but maybe that song by Enigma.
Yeah.
Enigma. Just playing on a loop all the way from London to Glasgow. How long is that train journey? It must be
4.5. It's 4.5 hours. It's just, I'm not being a pedant. It's not, if you want it to be silent, call it the silent coach. But it's not the silent. Silent is not the same as quiet.
They don't have grades, though, do they, of noise? It's not like there's the disco coach. On the other end. The screaming coach. Imagine that. You're all the way there. You have to scream at the top of your lungs the entire 4.5 hours until your eyes are completely bloodshot. You scream. Oh, it'd be terrible. Imagine getting... Actually, it'd be really cathartic, wouldn't it? That would be the ideal thing, is if there was a screaming coach that was next to the quiet coach. It'd be like when you go to a sauna and then have an ice bath.
I was sat in the quiet coach once, and two young lads got on who were speaking very loudly into their mobiles about what they were going to do to another lad who apparently had made a move on one of their girlfriends, and they really were shouting that they were going to do this and that to him, and he was a dead man, and they were swearing, calling him he's a dead man, we're going to get him. And everyone sat there saying nothing because we're all very middle class. And they got off, and a woman said to the entire carriage, "Well, I think someone's in trouble."
That's so British.
That's how to behave in the quiet carriage.
No.
Sean, what annoys you most about the modern world?
Pasta. Going around to people's houses for dinner, and they say, "Oh, we've made pasta," and you think, really? Really? It's like, that's special, is it? You've boiled something for 12 minutes. It really gets on my nerves.
How do you know they could have made the pasta by hand?
They haven't. They've just boiled something for 12 minutes. Any Italian food. It's like going to Italian restaurants with certain people, namely my parents. And the way they order food just annoys me, because they put on this Italian accent whenever they say the name of the food.
Really?
Yeah, they go, we'll have the spaghetti a pomodoro. And you go, why are you talking like that? It's just food. And, yeah, we'll have a bottle of the Montepulciano. Why are you talking like that? What are you doing? It's like when people do poetry and they put on their poetry voice. They're talking normally, and then they get... It's like my mum at weddings. She'll read out a poem and she's talking normally, and then she'll go, "Love is that most precious of things." Just talk normally.
It's quite high risk, surely, the Italian. Going into an Italian restaurant going, "I'll have the lasagna."
I love the spaghetti bolognese.
Surely, that could be just sarcasm. I mean, what else are you going to go in with one of the Dolmio puppets? Give me the ragu.
I take the ragu.
I like the meatball. Miles, what annoys you about the modern world?
People who think they're too good for pasta. Well, a number of things, on insecurity, buffering. I don't know what it is, but it's infuriating. Democracy is an unwise experiment. But umbrellas, I think we have given umbrellas, like, every chance. Umbrellas are absolutely appalling. There is not an umbrella good enough to do the job an umbrella is supposed to do that doesn't seriously inconvenience the 7 or 8 people nearest to where you're standing and walking. A golfing umbrella is one of the most disgusting things that exists in society. There is not a word, a really rude word, that you could print on a golfing umbrella that wouldn't accurately describe the person holding it.
I'm trying to think of what... No, you're probably right. But it's all very well to want to banish the umbrella, but what do you suggest in its place? Smarty pants? You haven't thought this through?
Yeah, I have. Don't you think I've just turned up? Roofs.
What, like portable roofs?
Yeah.
Small portable roofs that you hold, that maybe fold out.
Well,
that you hold, that are on a stick. Small portable, kind of canvassy roof. I mean, it's a very good point that you would have thought by now. I mean, this is supposed to be about the modern... I said a modern inconvenience, and you've come up with umbrellas, but maybe you're...
Well, they're still, commercially available. I'm not sort of going on about, the bloody mangle. Takes ages to get anything mangled. I mean, you could go into a shop now and buy an umbrella. It's not...
You've got a perfectly valid point, because they do seem curiously old-fashioned for the modern world. They're a bit like a horse and cart or something. You would have thought we'd have some sort of Dyson hat that would blow raindrops away from our heads automatically, or fry them on the way down, or collect them and turn them into some kind of, I don't know, smoothie. Something like that. So anyway, at the end of that, Susan, you are appalled by the quiet coach on trains. Mr. Sean Pye, it's food, specifically the way your parents order pasta. And Miles, you turn your nose up at umbrellas. Well, you know what? I'm going to give the point to Sean. Now to our final round, in which I'll be asking my guests a series of quick-fire questions. As always, the wrongest answer to each one wins a point. We'll kick off with, what is the most inappropriate message you could have on your gravestone?
Open up, help yourself.
Sort of jolly.
Yeah. I've got the remote control in here.
I'm going to give a point to Miles. What is the worst theme you can think of for a bar?
A quiet coach themed bar.
That is just the quiet coach, isn't it? People are always getting drunk. Why do people drink on trains?
You're going from London to Edinburgh is what, 9 cans?
Yeah.
Why aren't they advertising it like that? Edinburgh's just 9 cans away. Well, it's a point to you, Sean. What is the least enticing tagline you can think of for a romantic comedy?
He's got rabies, she's got herpes. Together they can't go swimming.
The British comedy of the year.
That, I believe, deserves a point. Oh, well, that sound means we have reached the very end of the show, making Miles Jupp this week's worst contestant. Congratulations, Miles. Congratulations, Miles. You're obviously so wrong, you're right. Commiserations to Susan Calman and Sean Pye. That's the end of the show. Goodbye.